I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, me militia? I mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not being supernaturally pulled towards my significant other, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And I am back at the Grizzly Cave to bring y'all my review of the latest body horror movie, Together. Together has been getting a lot of praise on its festival run, but now that it's had its wide release, does it live up to the hype? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads when they move to the countryside, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. So, admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of the body horror subgenre of horror. Sure, I love classics like The Fly and The Thing, and I have a big love for the practical effects that are in most body horror movies. But overall, it's just not really my thing. Until now, with this latest resurgence of body horror movies, I've grown to like this subgenre a lot. And a lot of the credit is due to last year's release, The Substance. That movie was awesome. It was a great character study with a lot of body horror. And since then, we've gotten a couple other body horror releases like Grafted and The Ugly Stepsister, and those were decent and pretty good, but not on the same level as The Substance. So now we have the latest release in the subgenre, Together. And the question is it eclipsed by the shadow of The Substance, or is it standing tall with it, or even surpassing it? And for me, even though it is nothing like The Substance as far as its message and its context, it is just as good, and it is definitely one of the best horror films of this year. So starting out with the positives, the cast is great all around. There isn't a bad performance in the house. You have Dave Franco as Tim, and Tim is the deadbeat, life going nowhere, no motivation, no drive, selfish boyfriend who is honestly, he's kind of an asshole and he's kind of a douche. He just pretty much mooches off of his girlfriend, who is a teacher and very successful, and he just sits around chasing this dream of becoming a musician in his mid-30s. And we all know that type of guy, and we all know that type of guy usually gets a really, really good woman in his life, and all he does is squander her and take her for granted. And Dave Franco perfectly embodies this douchey, narcissistic guy who just wants to mooch off of his girlfriend and essentially kind of use her in the process. And it's not that he doesn't love his girlfriend, Millie. It's that he has become so codependent and so reliant on her and her money, her transportation, her everything. Honestly, he contributes nothing to the relationship or the household whatsoever. And he just selfishly chases his dream at the expense of his awesome girlfriend. And as I said before, it's not that he doesn't love Millie. It's that he wants to pursue his dreams and doesn't care about her dreams. He cares more about his own ambitions and his more selfish needs than he does her. And watching his journey throughout this movie and him to somewhat go down the path of redemption as this movie goes on is a pretty damn good narrative and a pretty good way of showing this character's growth and giving us a kind of sympathy for this character, because when he first shows up, I don't really like the guy, and not in a way that they make him so unlikable that you just can't wait for something awful to happen to him like in a lot of movies nowadays, but more in the lines of the guy had something happen in his life and he was pursuing this dream, and that one thing has held him back from moving on from that dream and trying to actually become a functioning member of society and a good partner and lover to his girlfriend. And I think Franco did a damn good job at this. And then you have Alison Brie as Millie, and she is at first the girlfriend that every man would want. So supportive, understands their needs, caters to those needs at all costs, even at the expense of hers. And yet at the same time, as the movie goes on, you see that her codependency and her enabling of Tim's behavior and his way of life and his actions is just as toxic as Tim is. And it's pretty damn interesting to see those two contrasted, because at the beginning of the movie, you literally have this guy who you think is just with his girlfriend just because she's gorgeous and that she supports him in every endeavor financially and emotionally. And then you have this girl who is just wanting the person she loves to love her back and to be with her. And as the movie goes on, you start seeing that Millie is just as toxic as Tim is, and in her codependency and everything. Like, and at one point, she is so resentful that the moments in which her resentment come out are in front of other people, where she kind of demasculates him and talks to him very condescendingly, like, oh, he's just a musician, he's not smart enough to do that, or not handy enough to do that, or whatnot. And to me, that's very toxic as well, considering that she is enabling everything that he does. And she is honestly very justified in her resentment and her behavior, because Tim won't give her an ounce of affection whatsoever. He won't sleep with her. He won't do anything. And she constantly goes after him and tries to get him to engage in any kind of affection with her. And she always fails. He never wants to. So both of them are probably two of the most toxic people for each other that I've ever seen in a movie. And it's a very realistic depiction of how relationships with this much codependency and this much enabling and everything are so toxic and so real. Like, this is a real life thing. I know a lot of people who have relationships like this. Her journey and her character development throughout the movie is pretty damn good as well. And it is the exact opposite of Tim's. Tim goes into a path of redemption and understanding of what his actions have caused, whereas Millie has understood that her actions have done nothing but fed Tim's codependency and fed Tim's toxic behavior, to the point that they both are going opposite directions towards the end of the film. And it's kind of crazy to see that. It's crazy to see one who would never have anything to do with the other one all of a sudden be drawn heavily to the one that has been trying to get their affection this entire time, and the one that has been seeking the affection to completely go the opposite way and finally say enough is enough. And that happens a lot in real life, and I just thought that it was a very real life depiction of how this is how some relationships are. This is how toxic relationships are. You have Damian Harriman as Jamie, and he is the co-worker of Millie and is this really nice guy, supportive, but just seems to have something that he's hiding or some other ulterior motive. And you don't really find out that until the end, and it plays it pretty close to the chest up until the end as well. And I thought that he played his character extremely well as the person who's kind of trying to cut in on Tim and get in there with Millie. And then as the story goes on, you start seeing that motive is completely different. I think that the rural setting really sets the stage for the atmosphere of this movie, because you have this very rural area with this small town, and you don't really get to see much of the town. You really only get to see the road / area that they live in, the forest, and the school, and that's about it. You don't really get to see anything else of the town. But the whole time that you're in these settings and in these areas, you feel this big overshadow of dread. Like, there's something going on here that we don't see. And they do a damn good job of conveying that with little things here and there, from like little set pieces to certain points in the score to the cinematography and how the movie is shot. There's just a lot of stuff in there that gives us this very dreadful feeling without it being so overwhelming that it encompasses the whole movie. It's one of those that it's always there. You can feel it like on the back of your neck, but it's not quite on top of you yet. As I was saying before about the cinematography, there is a lot of background shots in this movie that are so fucking well done, and they are very, very effective. There is one in particular where you cannot see what's going on, and it's kind of in the background, but it's just obscured by darkness. And when it is finally revealed, it is shocking, but you can kind of see it. If your theater was dark enough, you could kind of see something happening. You just couldn't quite see it clearly. And man, when it's revealed, it is terrifying. It's so freaking disturbing. There are certain shots like where there is a door with glass and the glass is like frosted, so you can't really see very well that there's something on the other side. You can just see that there is something there. You just can't make out any details. And there is a moment, and it's in the trailer as well, so I'm not really spoiling anything, but there's a moment where somebody is kind of on the other side of this door, and the door shaking, the cinematography of this individual on the other side of this door and how it looks is absolutely bone-chilling. There's a lot of bone-chilling moments in this movie, and it's not anything to do with any kind of gore or anything like that. It's just really good cinematography and really disturbing images. This is one of the very few examples where a movie is so heavy-handed with its message, but is done so well that you don't mind it being so heavy-handed. The toxicity of a hyper-codependent relationship is something that, again, like I said before, is a real-world thing. And when two people are so codependent on each other for different reasons, and they finally get to a point where everything is coming to a head, those relationships either become so toxic and it ends in horrible ways, or those two people end up hating each other and they end up splitting ways and never speaking again. And that's a real world thing. That's something that happens. And it's just kind of like a cautionary tale that if you and the partner you're with are like this, you might not want to stay together, because if you do, it's probably going to end up ending pretty badly. One of the things that I loved so much was the origin of the supernatural force that is pulling them together. I thought that reveal was so damn cool, because it was something that I was not expecting. I thought that we were going to go a completely different route than what it went. And I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but it's something that I love in my modern horror, is this particular thing that it is related to, because I find it to be so fascinating. And the way that it is revealed, it starts out giving you this notion that it is something else, that it is the obvious answer, and then it slowly evolves into something completely different. And it's very Lovecraftian, and it's very cosmic in scale, very not necessarily elder god in scale, but very archaic. And I thought it was awesome how they made this supernatural force or being like manifested, and how it was taking its victims and how it was bringing people to its needs. And I thought that was really, really well done and very unique in how they did it. One of the things that was also very shocking was this movie's funny as hell. It's something that should be, the comedy in a movie and the comic relief in this movie should be so damn jarring, and it's not at all. It feels so natural and so well done, because the situation is so horrifying that certain things that happen would be funny, and not necessarily to the person that it's happening to, but to people who are onlookers who are seeing this happen as the audience, like us. There's a lot of funny shit in this movie, even if it's very dark, and I thought that was also very well done, and it didn't feel like it was unintentional. It felt like it was intentional, and it absolutely worked for me. Now I wouldn't call this a horror comedy, but let's just say it's so well written, and when the comedic aspects hit, they hit good, and it's not something that's jarring and kills the tension of the movie. The body horror and the sound design in this movie are great. They go hand in hand, and some of the body melding scenes in this movie are absolutely disturbing and bone chilling, and honestly batshit crazy. There are some moments where it doesn't go its traditional route with how body horror begins. It brings it in this unique aspect to where these two people are drawn together, and when I say they're drawn together, it's not that they're mentally and physically attracted to each other. They literally cannot stay the hell away from each other. They are pulled to each other. Even if they try to stop, they are forced to go together. And it is something that once it starts happening, and it starts happening in full force, it is absolutely gnarly, and some of the effects just look absolutely disgusting. And to go along with it, the sound design is incredible. Like, there are moments where one of the characters is being pulled down a hallway, and they try to stop themselves on like the rail of the stairs or on like some kind of piece of furniture, and they get folded over, and you can hear their bones cracking and their muscles contorting and all that. And it is so well done, and it hits right at the right moment, and just really pulls you in and keeps you watching and keeps you focused on it. And that was so well done as well. A couple of the standout scenes, there's a scene in the bedroom it doesn't last very long, but that one particular scene is one that got a oh shit out of the entire audience, and the sound design in that is incredible too, because it's just skin crawling with the sound design. And there's one scene in a cave where something horrifying happens, and that scene has you on the edge of your seat the entire time. But moving on to the mixed, even though the body horror is so damn good and so well done, there are moments where when CG is used, it kind of looks a little bit wonky. Particularly at the end, there's some very, very wonky CGI. And it's not enough for me to be like pissed off and say, oh, this is the worst CGI ever. Like, this is some of how Marvel CGI has been over the last few years. But it was noticeable where you have certain parts that had really quality CGI or practical effects, and then there were some parts where the CGI just looked completely unrealistic. And that was something that, again, I wasn't really pissed off about to put it into the negatives, but it was something that definitely had me mixed. And usually something that goes into my negatives part is rewatchability, and I feel like that although this isn't something that I'm going to go to all the time, this one feels more rewatchable than most body horror movies. This one is one that I would not mind visiting more often. Whereas something like The Substance, that I love and I thought was great, is something that I would not be watching all the time because of how relentless it is and how devoid of all fun that movie is. It's just this really dreadful character study of watching someone just spiral into madness. And this is kind of the opposite. This one has fun moments in it. This one has like a lot of rewatchability compared to most body horror movies, and that's why I'm throwing it in the mix, because it's still not a very rewatchable movie for me, but it's definitely more than the usual. And I would have to say that at the very end of the movie there is a reveal, and that reveal was very underwhelming and something that I was not expecting. And it's not necessarily bad, but I do think that once everything pops off and we get to a end point in this movie, the big reveal was kind of like, that's it, that's what happened, or that's the result. And it was kind of just underwhelming, but it doesn't put a huge damper on the entire film. So it was just underwhelming. Moving on to the negatives, there's a couple of things that I had to throw in the negatives, and one is dumb character decisions. And that's something that's very disappointing for a movie like this, because this movie is awesome, but there are a few moments where these characters make some of the dumbest decisions that I have ever seen in a horror movie. One being going in the woods and hiking during a downpour, and the other being when you're in that downpour and you fall into this cave, you decide to spend the night in a cave, in a dark ass cave, a dark, creepy ass cave. And they can 100% get out of this cave because they end up getting out with no assistance from anybody else. So they chose to stay in this cave overnight. And they also make other decisions in this cave that's like, what a bunch of dumbasses. Why the fuck would you do that? And it leads to pretty much all of this happening. And it's just something that I was like, there ain't no fucking way I'm staying in that cave. And of course they did. And I guess you got to have that in order to have the plot. But it just seemed like pretty damn unbelievable that anybody would do that, because I know me, my big ass, I don't care how freaking tall that opening was in that cave, I was going to never stop. I would never sleep until I could get the hell out of that cave, because I damn sure wasn't going to die in that cave, and I wasn't going to spend the night in that cave. So that was something that was real shocking to me. So that was something that was just like, that really wouldn't happen. It was kind of illogical. There's also moments when things are 100% popping off and you know that there's not anything normal going on here, that some of the characters are like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this, or I'm going to go to bed now. And it's like, what? No fucking way. There's no way I'm going to go to bed after seeing what I just saw or experiencing what I just experienced. And it just didn't seem very logical that anybody would do that after experiencing something so horrific as some of the stuff that they witnessed in this movie. So there is some logic issues and there is some dumb character decisions. And that was a little bit disappointing for me in a movie that was really, really good and at a very high caliber. So I expected more out of that. But overall, guys, this movie was great. I 100% loved it. I wouldn't mind watching it again. And it's just good to see these different subgenres of horror having this resurgence and having a success with this resurgence. Like, not only is body horror having a resurgence right now, but found footage is also having a resurgence where that subgenre is putting out some bangers. Like Hell House LLC and Deadstream and the VHS franchise. And now we've got great body horror coming out in this resurgence with The Substance, Grafted, The Ugly Stepsister, and now Together. So I highly recommend any fan of horror to go see this. And if you're a big fan of body horror, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. So with all that being said, Together gets a 4.25 out of 5 and is Grizzly grade guaranteed. Definitely go out and see this movie. In fact, if you have a significant other that loves horror, y'all need to go see this movie. This will be kind of a real test of your relationship because, man, this movie was great and it was gnarly and its message was spot on. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for your continued support and patience. Without y'all, this channel isn't possible. And if you like this video, like it. And if you like it enough, please head over to the channel, hit the subscribe and bell button so you never miss a video. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and all forms of badassery. Just want to give a quick update. The Friday the 13th review series is still going on. I've just had to take the volume down a little bit to where I'm bringing it out maybe every other week, because I'm pretty damn busy in my personal life right now. So I'm going to keep giving those to y'all. It's just going to come out a little bit slower. So please be patient with me on that. Next up is probably my absolute most anticipated film of 2025, and that is Zach Krieger's Weapons. I am so damn excited for this movie. I'm really hoping that my excitement and my hype for this movie doesn't make the movie seem anticlimactic when I actually get to see it. But from what I'm hearing, it is damn good, and I cannot wait to watch it. So until next time, remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.